So now I'm going to go through a technique of copying a dart in a garment. Sometimes when you're copying a garment and it, has some dart and shaping in it, it's hard to know, how to go about that. So I'm going to show you a really easy way to copy a garment with a dart. The dart could be anywhere. I'm just going to show you guys where the dart is sort of radiating from the side seam, just a little dart, but even if your garment has multiple darts, you just simply do the same thing to each dart and it will turn out, just as perfect and accurately. So what I'm going to do is actually flip the garment inside out and measure the dart intake. So it's 1/2 of an inch on, from the dart stitching line to the fold, so I know that the full dart intake is 1 inch. So just keep that in mind for later, maybe write it down somewhere so we have a 1 inch dart that our dart is. And if you have multiple darts in your garment, just measure all of them and then jot it down, so you have it beside you once you're tracing it out. But if you just have one, it's easy just to measure it. And make sure you don't forget that it's not just 1/2 of an inch, it's actually 1/2 of an inch on the other side too, because it's folded, so you need to double that measurement. And this is just a really basic design. It's symmetrical, so why do more work than you have to? You just trace 1/2 of it and then, cut it on fold or, retrace it on tracing paper. So just 1/2 the garment. So I've just, pin marked the center front, and I established where the center front was by, placing the side seams together and finding that midpoint, and then I placed the shoulder seams together and established the midpoint along the neckline, and I just connected those with a ruler and pin marked, the center in place. So we have our center front mark. And then you just sort of smooth out your front piece as well. So I've sort of shifted up my sleeve so I get a nice armhole curve, and I've, smoothed over my dart so it's laying flat. And the side seam is rolling a bit over to the front, which is fine because you just would trace it to the seam line, but just make sure, again, it's not rolling over the back because you won't know where that side seam is. But if it's just perfectly at the side, that's fine too. So now again, we just smooth our plastic over top and pin the plastic to our garment. And then you trace just sort of the bottom section of it, or the bottom, 1/2 of where the dart is. So I've just traced a little bit up the center front along the hemline, up the side seam, and right here I have traced out my dart. So here's my dart tip right here, and I've just drawn a line from the side seam to the dart tip where that dart line is. And then I've measured out away from my dart intake, which was 1 inch that we established earlier, and then I just made a little mark there and connected it to my dart tip like that. And then you just fold the dart. So you just fold that top line and then fold it to the bottom line and just create a dart in the plastic. This is what is so great about the plastic garbage bag. You can do things like this really easily. So just fold out the dart, pin it in place, and then continue tracing, and you have a dart. And so I have my dart pin closed, and I trace up, the rest of my side seam, my armhole, my shoulder line, and down my neckline as well. Super easy. And if you have extra darts in the armhole, you just do the same thing where you trace up to the dart leg, draw out the dart, and then measure out the dart intake, connect it to the dart tip, and fold the dart in the plastic, and then continue tracing around the piece. So it doesn't matter how many darts you have in your garment, just do that same thing to each one of them, making sure that the center front line stays straight so you don't skew the piece as well. And then you just unpin it from your garment and lay it out on a piece of paper so you can see it nice and clear.